Hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest, 8-Second Gaming, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down 5 tips for you solo queuers out there. Because solo queue can be rough, but I have solo queued to Masters twice before, so I do know a little bit about what I'm talking about, and I'm here to share that information with you. So by the end of this video you will have a lot more information to bust out in your solo queue grinds. But if you guys are here, it's very clear that you want to get better at Apex, and if that's the case, then you need to check out the GameLeap website right now. Over there we have top level coaches, including myself, creating the best, most highly informative guides. We're releasing up to 10 videos a week and they're all site exclusive, so you will not find them anywhere else. We got legend guides, gun guides, VOD reviews, and much more. So if you really want to hit a new peak rank, reach Diamond, Masters, or even Predator, click the link in the description, pick yourself up a membership, or I'll steal all your Apex packs. But okay, with that out of the way, let's jump into the tips. And the first tip that we got to talk about today is you need to be treating every fight like it's a 1v3. I know, people are going to be saying that Apex is a team game and you should be playing around your team. But how many times have Apex randoms let you down in fights? I'm pretty sure a lot of you are going to be answering most of the time, and that is pretty much always the case for people. If you are relying on your teammates in fights to do something that you expect or want them to do, and then you try playing around that, they're probably not going to be able to do it the way that you pictured. So you're going to be putting yourself out of position in the hopes that your teammate is actually going to back you up. But if you treat every fight like it's a 1v3 and really only essentially use your teammates as meat shields, then you're not going to be relying on them in fights and you'll be putting yourself in a lot better positions, because you're not going to be thinking that they're doing something that you want them to do and you're basically just trying to 1v3 the entire team. And I know some people might not be thinking that that's a good mindset to have, but it's a solo queues mentality. If you're with an actual 3-stack, it's a lot different, but solo queuers, you have to be relying on yourself and yourself only. But now let's jump into tip number 2, and that is to mute your team. Apex has its fair share of the toxic community members. They're not all on League of Legends. There can be some times where if you don't do something a teammate wanted you to do, or they're just not having a good day, they won't really hold back in sharing what's on their mind. But I see a lot of people be way too afraid to mute them if that is happening. But if all that they're doing is clogging up the text box and blocking part of your screen, or yelling at you over their microphone, blocking out what little footstep sound we have in the game, then they're actively putting you at a disadvantage. You don't want to have stuff popping up on your screen. The human eye is naturally drawn to movement, so if a new text pops up, your eye is naturally going to look at it and not at what you need to be looking at. Or if they're yelling at you, then you can't hear anything. It's better to just mute them and focus on your own gameplay. You have to remember that you're there for your RP and not for theirs. If they want to be toxic, don't feed into it. Mute them and let them scream into the empty void. Now moving into tip number 3 though, this is leading them to victory. Now like I said, I have solo queued to Masters twice, and in my personal experience, when IGLing randoms, it has gone very poorly. They typically do not listen. But I was talking to a friend of mine when I was writing this script, and he's also a Masters level player who has solo queued a decent amount in high tier lobbies, and he has had a bunch of success in being an IGL for randoms. So this is for people like him where you can actually successfully do it. When he solo queues, he will literally IGL every single portion of their gameplay. He tells them what angles they need to hold, when and where to use their abilities, and even when to throw grenades. Every single aspect of their gameplay is not thought out by them, but actually thought out by him. And when you IGL that hard, your teammates are basically an extension of your gameplay. You can set them up so that you can be the carry. Now, do keep in mind that this can have some varying results. Like I said, I have not had any success in IGLing randoms. Usually when I try to tell somebody what to do, they do the exact opposite, probably just out of spite. But who knows, you might actually be able to break through to them and be able to tell them what to do, and if that's the case, you'll have a lot better chance of winning because you're always going to be on the same page with your randoms because you're telling them what to do. But now let's jump into tip number 4, and that is picking the right legend. Now, a lot of solo queuers make the mistake of not picking a legend that actually works for the solo queue playstyle. Most of the time, they'll play the legend that they want to play. And yes, that is also a viable way of playing Apex. You should always be playing the legend that you have the most fun on. But you should always also be trying to use a legend that will help you out in the solo queue environment. environment. You have to remember that your randoms will leave you stranded in the blink of an eye if a fight goes south. If they need to get out, they won't be thinking about you, they'll just get out of the fight, and if you don't have any movement, you will be left behind, you'll die, and your game will be over, and you're gonna have to watch your teammate rap for some RP. So it's always a good idea to run a character that has some movement ability. Pathfinder, Vantage, Loba, Valkyrie, somebody like that can get you out of a sticky situation. But being able to get out of bad situations isn't the only advantage of having a movement ability at the ready. If you are in a fight and you started out by getting a massive amount of damage on somebody that's split off from their team, you can then use that movement ability to push them and get them out of the fight almost instantly. That way it's gone from a 3v3 to a 3v2. And when solo queuing, you need to take any advantage you can get in a fight. So if you can get a man down in the beginning, you should always be taking that. And when playing a movement character in Apex in a solo queue environment, you always have to remember, be looking out for yourself because your randoms won't be. But now let's talk about tip number 5, and that is going to be communication. Now, communication is very key in a game like Apex. The fights in Apex can be very fast paced and they can change almost instantaneously. Stuff can happen, your plan can go very wrong very quickly. But if that's the case, then you need to be able to communicate that to your team, and you can't be taking the time to stop in the middle of a fight and type it out. So you should always be using your microphone when solo queuing. And I know that sometimes randoms don't use their microphone, and that's fine. But just because they aren't talking doesn't mean that you shouldn't be talking either. You always want to be giving callouts, tell them what damage you've done, where the enemies are pushing, what's the game plan that you have in mind. Feeding your teammates information is never a bad thing. And when you're giving these callouts, that way, at least at some form of the game, you are all on the same page and you're all thinking about the same things. If no one's giving callouts at all, no one knows who's low, no one knows who's where, no one knows who's pushing who, and it can be a nightmare to play around. That's the reason I see a lot of low elo players that are in solo queue lose fights, is because they don't communicate at all. Nobody has any idea what's going on, and then someone dies, they're not sure if there's any damage that's been put out on them, so they try to push them. Turns out, hey, they haven't actually hit any bullets, so they just threw themselves out of position for no reason, and now you've died too, and your teammate is the last one alive, so they either have to rat or they die too, sending you back to the lobby with a huge fat RP loss. This is something that's very, very simple, yet not a lot of people do. Just give callouts in your game and you will see a massive increase of winning fights. Now, solo queue can be very mentally taxing, so this is why I have a question for you guys, the community. Why do you solo queue? There are a bunch of different ways to find teammates in Apex. If you really wanted to, you can easily get a 3-stack. So why do you prefer to solo queue? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm actually genuinely curious about this. And with all this being said, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. If you did and you want to stay up to date with the latest and greatest Apex Legends tips, tricks, and news, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Once again, I'm 8 Second Gaming, and I will see you in the next one.